All right, guys, we should be live now. So if anybody wants to check that or not, Tony, you get notifications, right? Did you just get one?
Yeah, you're live now.
Okay, cool, excellent. All right, guys. So I wanted to go through a couple things first, and I can't say everything on YouTube that I wanted to go through as far as news goes, but I can sort of give you guys the idea of some stuff. So first thing that is important, I think, to bring up, and a little bit surprising to me, um, is that because I've heard it a couple times from different people, is like stuff about the economy or whatever, coming up, like little stuff, nothing big, but just like little stuff, little comments here and there from customers or whatever, blaming gas prices and stuff like that, for not wanting to set up appointments. And today when I was down in the field sales training meeting, they said that they've ran into one sales rep so far that has said something, and they've asked the sales reps like, "Hey, let us know when you start hearing this stuff or whatever, just because we'll prepare for it and this and that." So they've heard almost nothing about the economy, and I think that that's just indicative. And I don't think we've heard a ton about it, but I just want to bring it up because I think that's indicative of the fact that we're obviously running into people out there that did not expect us to be there, and did not expect to feel the pressure maybe to set up appointments or whatever, whether they should feel pressure or not. They didn't expect to have to. And so I think that it's just indicative of the fact that, like, during the holidays become the excuse for our customers, right? During the tax season, I'm going to get my taxes back and do it, becomes the excuse. And so we're probably going to hear that more than the sales reps, because we are their sort of line of defense against that. But it's a positive thing that they're not hearing it yet, and it's definitely not impacting sales close rate yet or anything like that. Will it? Look, I'm sure that it will at some point, and I don't think it's a bad idea for us to talk about it, right? Like, typically it's like you stay away from stuff like that because you don't want to be negative or whatever, but I think that we can be positive and be proactive at the same time. I don't think that we have to be negative. And I can look directly back to COVID as the same kind of thing, where it was like, think about the only negative of being proactive during COVID would have been, we would have had a sales system down earlier for the sales reps, and we would have been able to get out there right away and sell some leads and stuff like that. So I don't think that there's any negative to talking about. Obviously, there's such thing as like over pushing it and stuff like that, but I think that preparing and talking about what we can do to make ourselves more prepared and better during whatever issue comes up here soon. It's not a bad thing. The other benefit that I got from being down there was, one thing that I was a little bit personally nervous about was what will happen to financing when it comes to our sales. That was my concern from a sales perspective, because that's really the only thing that could negatively impact us theoretically, not really from a setting up leads perspective, but from a sales perspective with our department. And I was very happy to hear the news, and this is what I have to be careful on talking about, but let's just put it this way, and then I can give more context as I can, which will be very soon, just not on camera. Our company is working and very close to, I mean, they found it, how do I put this? A system that would allow us as a company to have access to many sources of financing very, very quickly. So it's sort of a new financing structure that would be extremely beneficial to us as a company. And so even though interest rates are going up and ours will go up, we're not going to be offering 299 forever. That's more of a reason to get more people on now. We got another person logging in on Zoom. I'm going to let them in, and then that's going to be it for me letting people in or whatever to the Zoom. So, because I don't want to have this interrupt, over and over again throughout the time. So, one second. Hey, Samsung. Can you mute yourself real quick?
That's Harry.
Okay, great, Harry. Can you mute yourself real quick? But that's good news. It's good to hear that we have those resources available to not impact us negatively whenever interest rates do go up. Now, here's the deal: is that, and we'll go through this a little bit more right in the beginning of training, but this is where you don't want to freak people out. You don't want to go over things that you don't have to go over, but you do want to prepare the customer. And if you are getting somebody that is objecting to you, over and over again because they don't want to buy anything right now, or they're not in a financial position to improve their home right now, and we're lucky enough to have some people on our team and some people whose families have invested a lot in real estate. And all in all, I think that they could speak to, and we'll get to it. And I'll ask, Seth, for example, about it, improving your home during times like this, and reinvesting and stuff like that in your property. And so we'll go over that a little bit today too, but we'll also talk about how to talk to customers about that right now from a canvassing perspective, as we move forward. Let me grab a pen because I got to keep reminding myself of all the stuff I'm saying we're going to talk about. All right, so and we will get to that, because I think that in terms of rebuttals, there's a lot of great stuff that we can do. And it's not just about people saying, oh, the economy. It's about people saying that they don't want to make the investment into their home right now, or specifically into windows right now, because there's probably a lot of things that we can say to jump over that objection as well. Okay. All right, let me see. All right, so when it comes to doors, a lot of interesting news on doors. So no initial, this is when we can start doing entry doors again. But whenever we can start doing entry doors again, we are going to be one of the offices piloting the brand new Renewal by Andersen entry door. And so we will have a separate brand new Renewal by Andersen entry door that's made by Renewal by Andersen. I don't know the exact specifications. I have to imagine that there's Fibrex involved and stuff like that, of course. But I don't know the exact specifications of it, exactly what it looks like, but it won't be a Therma-Tru or anything like that. It will be a Renewal by Andersen door, and we will be a pilot office of that, plus the financing stuff that we were talking about earlier. So I'll say more, not on camera, but it's looking like we will be able to pitch doors again by, August the latest. But probably earlier than that, but by August the latest. Okay. All right. Last piece of news that is important, that is I can talk about a little bit. This is one that is more dangerous for us to talk about, in terms of we have to control what our teams do and what we do as a department and as individuals. But what the sales force is focusing on over the course of the next month is getting better at pitching one-party appointments. Now, this is not something that should impact us, because we shouldn't get one-party appointments. That's the bottom line. We largely should not get those. And what this is going to require is, and I don't want to call it a negative, because it's not a negative unless you make it a negative, but the inherent problem, if you have a team that is getting a lot of one parties, is that we have to be stricter on them. We're going to have to be a lot stricter on the way that we're getting one parties into the system, because they are going to be pitching a lot more one parties instead of trying to reschedule all the time, because a lot of times one parties don't reschedule. And so it's like 13% of one parties actually reschedule, or something like that. Oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's 13% of them reschedule. And so we're going to try to get the close rate from single digits to over 25%. That's the goal. There's some sales reps in the country that are closing one parties at over 50%. And so they're putting extra effort into selling those. But the caveat is that, hey, we promise that we will get you less one parties if you try to run those one parties that we get you when we get them. Doesn't mean that we're going to be calling in one parties, by the way, not at all. It's the contrary, is that we have to watch ourselves much closer. And so it's very important that we do that as that happens. Nothing is changing by any means right now, but just expect that, training will be coming on one party appointments and what not to do. You know what I'm saying? Hold on one second. I just got to answer back this text message to one of our guys. Okay. All right. So that's it for the news. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that kind of stuff? And again, what I can talk about is limited. Just, I might tell you I can't answer your question if you ask me a question. So, but if anybody does, then feel free. Okay, so let's jump into the training portion then. Unless anybody has a question, I know I didn't give you much time there. Feel free to interrupt. But what I wanted to go through tonight, guys, and I'm trying to find a way to, okay, how can we work every person in here? And I think that the way that we can do this is sort of like open forum kind of things. I'm going to have some specific questions for you guys, specifically individually. But largely, I think that this will be sort of open forum. So here's the deal: is if you watch the training, if you could real quick put your little yellow hand up if you watched some of the training videos, at least be honest about it. Okay, I know Seth did because he told me the number, I believe, texted me about it yesterday. I know Zoom user did as well. Okay, Zoom user did twice. It looks like, I guess that's Mo. I guess Corey did. I know you did because you sent me the number. Tony, you definitely did because you were on when I was making them. Okay, so he can't find his yellow hand is what I'm guessing. All right, so I got a little bit pissed off at the end of the first one. If you were watching that, Seth said, had texted me and said, I like that you were that passionate at the end of it or whatever. And then, that bled into the second one a little bit because I wanted to talk a little bit more about why I was getting like that. And so I want to introduce that first as an idea and then ask you guys what you think about that. Because what I started picturing was if I was in front of our team right now and the different emotions that I see in our team and how uncomfortable sometimes it can even make me when I'm doing the training or when I'm doing the meeting or something like that, depending on the location I'm at and stuff like that. And what I noticed, and I think it's because here's what's going to affect it. Okay, I'll lay that out first. What's going to affect? I'll lay that out second. Okay, so when I'm up in Williamsport and Altoona, typically people are pretty. I have no complaints, right? If anything, it makes me uncomfortable the amount of enthusiasm, especially in Williamsport, that I get. As I said before, the amount of enthusiasm can sometimes make me uncomfortable because I feel like I have to perform. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like a mark is made for me, like I'm walking into a trap or something like that in a positive way, right? Like there's an expectation that's been set. I better have some information for them, or else I'm going to be in trouble with all the people up there, right? So it's good. It's a good bar to hit. It's not a bad thing. I'm happy about that. That makes me happy to get to go into that environment. And I think there's a reason why it's a little bit different in Williamsport and Altoona versus down here. And I'll get to that in a second. But what I notice when I'm in front of our staff versus those other staffs is that up in Altoona, a lot of people take notes, right? There's and there's people in our staff that do as well, right? Daquan is always our staff being central. Daquan is always taking notes down. Alex is always taking notes down. There's several other people that are as well. But up in Altoona and Williamsport, people really are. They're engaged. They are asking questions. Altoona is really great for the amount of questions that they ask. Caleb Miller asked a ton of questions. He did in training, and he did separate from training too. Whenever I was up there last, a lot of people are enthusiastic. Cameron Goss, even though he's doing fantastic, always has a question teed up for me, ready to ask. And so there's a lot of engagement, and that level of engagement, I think, makes them do better because they want to get better. They want to do well. What I've realized down in Central sometimes is that we have some people that are super engaged and some people and some teams that are not as engaged. And that lack of engagement associates with bad numbers. So I can go, okay, we just had a couple people, for example, fall off from our staff for some by choice and some not. And if I look at them over the last couple of weeks, their level of engagement has been extremely, extremely low. And I can look at some teams and the level of engagement is extremely high. And other teams, they're looking at me like they want to walk out of the room mid-training or whatever because they feel like they don't need anything and they have arrived and they are good. And they are some of the people that are closest to being let go because of production. And so that's what got me so irritated, I think, was I'm looking around this theoretical room and I'm seeing these faces and I'm seeing some people that are extremely passionate having to put up with people that completely lack passion and ability to make change. And then I thought about the amount of time that I was spending on this at 10 o'clock at night. Today's my wedding anniversary, my 8th wedding anniversary, and I'm getting geared up to go on to training while my kids are going to sleep. There's 2 nights in a row that I missed putting my kids to bed. And I'm okay with that. And they're okay with that. But I started thinking in my head, like, man, and look, I don't sacrifice it. You guys are out walking the streets in 95-degree weather every day. So I'm not, by any means even comparing to that. My point is, though, is that we're all putting a lot of time in this. Your guys on here that our canvassers are putting a ton of time into this. And some people are not. Some people don't even care. And that pissed me off. It put me in a position where I'm like, hey, listen, it doesn't matter what the hell we go over. And you can sit there and pretend like, oh man, that didn't do anything for me. You didn't change anything then. You did not actively make any decision to change. Because I'll tell you what, talk about someone that wants change. I've been talking about my time with Caleb Miller a lot the last couple of days, because I think that it's a great example of someone that wants change. He goes on the training the other day and is fully engaged. Every person's pitch that he listens to, he has questions about, positive questions, positive encouragement. He's fully engaged in the training. And then when I'm up there the next time, he has 2 or 3 pages of notes from the training. If I was dissecting someone else's script, or if I was doing my own pitch, he's writing notes the entire time. And, some of them maybe were unwarranted. Some of them were not. But the point is that if he could pull 1 or 2 things out of it, then he was going to put that effort in to pull 1 or 2 things out of it. And that's what's important. So I go walk with him and I say, hey, and I know you guys have, Corey and Mo, are putting a ton of work with this guy and stuff like that. And he's doing well for it. I mean, the guy's averaging 2 or 3 leads a day. But I walk with him and there's 3 people in a row that I go, man, I think we could have booked all 3 of those people. We didn't book any of them. I think we could have booked all 3 of those people, at least 2 out of the 3, definitely. And here are the reasons why. And I gave him a short list, but I told him, I said, listen, let's go over stuff when you come back from vacation, because it doesn't make much sense to go over it now or go over it later today. And then you're going to be gone for a couple of days or whatever. He texted me later, thanked me, got 2 more leads directly after that in the next hour, because he changed 1 or 2 things. We decided to focus on 1 or 2 things to not overwhelm him. I could have gave him 18 things, but maybe 5 that were important. But there was so much change that could have been made over the course of those couple houses, where I truly feel like we could have booked at least 2 out of 3 of those leads. And I think he felt that too. He felt it deep inside of him, but he needed someone there to tell him, hey, you could have booked that appointment, man. You could have done a better job with that. And having that person there to tell him that helped him when it was pointed. It wasn't, obviously disparaging, not that that's what we're doing or anything like that, but it was, hey, listen, just be aware, you can do more here. You definitely can, and that's what our guys need right now, is they need somebody there to tell them, hey, you can do more. I know you can. This is how you can. Now let's affect change. Okay. So on that, the last thing I'll say about that, and then I'm going to open it up to you guys. I want to talk about this a little bit. And this is, I know, getting a little bit off script training or whatever, but I want to take advantage of having us all here. This is something that's going to be driven by your team, by you as a leader on your team. And this is what I see. I'm just going to use team A and team B. I could see team A where the leader is somewhat of maybe a pain in the ass sometimes, does their own thing every once in a while or whatever, and has to be reined in, but is always trying to affect change, is always making positive steps, is always trying to grow, and is passionate about seeing the people around them grow. And then you could have leader B, who maybe never rocks the boat, maybe never has any kind of issues like that or whatever, but doesn't affect change, doesn't inspire people, and is not actively trying to adapt employees, is going through the motions. And that's read by their people. And so their lead amount suffers. Probably more importantly, maybe their demo rate or their cancel rate suffers, because the customers see the lack of passion, and that causes them to react to it. It's going to be driven by the team or the team leader or both, more than anything, because you're with these people the most and they are together the most, right? And so that's, I want to invite that idea to you guys. Not that it's not important. I'm not devaluing my job by any means, but I've said it for years. I've said it since I was in the position. The team lead is the most important position, because you're out there front lines all the time. You're seeing everything go down. And that's why it's look, you're going from probably no management experience for a lot of you guys into a high level management role where you're actively having, it doesn't matter how it might, be titled as a mid-level manager job. It's not. It's higher level management than most other management jobs in the company. You are actively having to deal with problems every day past the point of your hours. So it's tough. And so it's a difficult role, but you have to start to adapt to it because of that. So I guess my question for you guys is, where do you think you've had, and please keep the responses brief, where do you think you've had difficulty with this? And where do you think that you've excelled in this? And if you could raise your little yellow hand, that would be helpful because we do have several people on this call. So that's the first question. And then we can start the discussion based on that. Go ahead, Tony.
So some difficulties early on within management was the team atmosphere more than anything, getting that up to, where everyone wants to see each other grow, and the competition really within the department and between teammates and between other teams, that breeds a whole lot of usefulness when it comes to pushing each other and making that team mentality really ingrained in that, everyone wanting to push each other and push themselves.
Yeah, that's super important. That makes sense. And I think that, look, we just sort of dealt with this with one of your guys, right? And, it sucks to see people go, people that we like go, but at the same time too, it affects change on the team. And, I think that you're starting to see the benefits very quickly of that as well, even though some of those changes were just made. And I want to mention this because I did forget this, and that sort of reminded me of it. But the other thing, it was something that I forgot to go over, is that what I think the biggest difference when I go up to Williamsport and Altoona, look, you don't gotta say the nicest things about me all the time or whatever. I don't think people are like shit talking each other behind their backs or whatever. But the thing is that like it doesn't help to you could, oh man, all right, here's a good example. There was a guy named Andrew Kruger we had that worked here, and he was a prick. You ask Andrew Fitzpatrick about him. It was like everything was a problem all of the time, and he was terrible for his team's culture. Absolutely terrible. I mean, one time I offered them to, hey, stay. Whoever gets the next lead gets triple credit for it, and I said, hey, I know you guys are on your way home. You don't have to do this. But if you want to, we need one more next day. If somebody gets it, they'll get triple credit for it. So if you want to stop off and do it, and Andrew Fitzpatrick was like, all right, let's go do it. And I started off with, listen, you don't have to do this, but if you want to do it, then you're more than welcome to. And I was about to leave the office. He gets out of the van and starts punching the van. And like, oh my God, I can't believe he's making us do this. And his team's like, you had him on speakerphone. He literally said, we don't have to do it. What's your problem? That's crazy. And I know that's an extreme example, but that's not helpful at all, right? Like if I say to somebody on your team, if I go to one of Mo's guys and I'm like, man, that Mo, he's like, I mean, he knows his stuff kind of, but like, he's not that good. He's kind of an asshole. And like, I wouldn't want to have to deal with him every day or something like that. Is that positively going to impact the team at all? Is that going to benefit the department? If Mo says that about me every day, then is that going to inspire positivity or change? We had a guy who quit one time that I interacted with twice. Both the times were very positive interactions. And I won't say what team it was on or whatever, or what location it was, but he wrote a text message saying that he was quitting because I was an asshole to him. And I met him twice. The last time I saw him was 2 months before that because our schedules misaligned. Come to find out, and I talked to him since, and Andrew Fitzpatrick was the one who mentioned this to me. He said, hey, I bet you the manager was talking shit. I bet you he was putting everything on you. Anytime he had to give any bad news or anything like that, it was your fault. You said this. You said you have to get back late. You said this, that you had to be on this PDP or whatever. And turns out that what it wasn't. That's what it wasn't. I don't mind being the bad guy, but the flip side is definitely what I can speak to for certain, because I've heard them say it, is anytime I go to Williamsport, I mean, Harry for months was like, I want to work with you. I hear how good you are at the job. I hear how, how well you've done with this and this and that. I want to work with you. I want to work with you. I want to work with you. And, same thing with Corey and the people up there in Altoona. Anytime I'm out on the road with people and stuff like that. Not that that doesn't happen down here, but the difference is that these people down in Mechanicsburg, they see me every single day. And so it's a little bit different. And you guys as team leads down here in Mechanicsburg see me every day too. So do I ride your asses a little bit more? I mean, I don't think I'm that bad, but but sure, you're around me every single day, so a little bit more. So they might see that as well. The bottom line is that we have to, the thing has always been to me is bitch up, right? Like if I have a problem with Dawn, then my job is to go to Jen about it or to go to Dawn about it. But it's not to go to Spencer in the call center about it, right? And so that I think it's an important point to put out there, that's how we affect change as leaders, is by having, Tony said, great environment, right? Great environment, friendly competition. Those are the two things that, and don't, I add to that, don't say anything that you're not willing to say in front of somebody. Those three things, right? And so, Tony, thank you for that. I think that those two are super important. And I think that your team has seen and will continue to see a big benefit from team environment. Now, I would ask Harry to speak to this as well, because that's something that's had to change up there. And I think has over the last couple months changed up there. So can you speak to what has changed up there, Harry? And then if you guys could put your hands up if you want to get on that topic, that'd be great.
Are you, just to clarify, you're talking about the negativity that left the office? That kind of,
the change in the environment. Yeah, yep.
Okay. Yeah, we had a lot of excuses that got passed around. And it was left unchecked for a long time. And once we realized how toxic that environment was and the impact that it had on not only the people that have been there for a long time, but the new people that we were bringing in also, that we had to make some pretty drastic changes in the office as far as who was still there and who needed to go.
And some of these people, one in particular was really good at the job. And Seth, you've had to deal with this a couple of times. I mean, you had like early on, that guy, I'm not going to name his name, but he was really, really good right off the bat, like 12, 14 demos good. I think he almost beat the record, and then fell off real bad, had some personal life stuff going on or whatever, and definitely brought it into work, and it caused a lot of negativity. He's crap talking about moving up and stuff like that, even though he has done nothing to deserve it. And then you guys dealt with something similar with the person more recently that Harry, I believe, is talking about in the so it's something that's constantly got to be managed. That's a big thing there, right? So I don't see any little yellow hands up. I move to next. Oh, Seth, go ahead.
Yeah, just to touch on that, I think that's, when you say that this is a high level of leadership that's required here, it is. And it's not an important distinction as well, is that it's not necessarily a one size fits all. I think that there are a bunch of systems and standards we have in place that work beautifully, but you have to meet people where they're at to bring them along each step of the way. And if they're not willing to take that journey, then the onus falls on us to recognize that and to address it quickly. Because invariably it's gonna, especially with all the amazing things we have down the pike here, you might not see it immediately, but you're impacting everyone else in a negative way, and you're hampering their growth by not having those honest, candid conversations with people, meeting them where they're at, and then bringing them along or parting ways. So yeah, some really tough decisions for some people that have been in the office that have added a lot of production, but invariably it would have been a lot more harmful to the department had they persisted.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And that's the thing I said last night too, that I never want to come off the wrong way, but I think has to be recognized. Like I said this to Mo earlier, we were on the phone, like I'm fully aware that if I left the company, for example, things would move on. Would there be hiccups and stuff like that? Maybe not. But things would move on. And so when we have a canvasser that is not, that is really being a miserable jerk, essentially, and is causing problems in the staff, and we've got to come off them very, very quickly. And this is something, and this is meant to be training for canvassers too, but this is now, and I think, when we talk about environment, this has become sort of a team lead, thing, obviously, because most of the people on the phone, that's where you're at or that's where you're going, right? TJ, get off. That's fine, but I didn't realize that he got off. So I mean, everybody on the phone is there, or pretty much right there, and is essentially there. I mean, Corey, you've been effectively doing the job for a significant amount of time, so I think that's what you're considered, totally. So everybody here's on that job. So inevitably we're going to move in that direction when it comes to conversation. But from a canvassing perspective, I think it's important to realize too that, like, look, we don't expect this to be like the most important thing in your life all of the time. And we don't, if you're focused on growth, then yeah, we expect this to be an extremely important part of your life. If you're not, I don't care. Stay and do the job for as long as you want, as long as you do it. I don't care. Like, it's up to you, dude. But you're not going to tear down the department by like having a couple bad days and being fired or quitting. Like, it's not. Do what you're going to do. Just act like an adult, regardless. I said yesterday, like, act like a man, and I don't mean that like, no offense to anybody that's not a man in the department. That's not what I mean. I mean, like, act like a person, like to me, there's a certain set of morals that you live by. And look, you break them. Like, I break my morals. Everybody does, right? I mean, it's the way it is. But you there's certain things that you don't break. And I see now, and we've seen, some people breaking those. And I think that does take away from production. So can anybody speak to that? Does anybody feel that way? Or has anybody seen that before in their team department? Corey, I asked you to speak to that based on your experience there and seeing, the issues that we were talking about earlier, that led to changes like Mo coming up there and stuff like that in the department. Even stuff that's not meant to be morally bad, but does negatively impact the department, like what you guys were left to do for so long with no real training.
Yeah. So, I mean, really, it was more of a complacent standpoint from what I've seen. So, when people get comfortable in the position that they're in, they're making decent money. They're not really thinking about where they can go from there. They started to just like delegate their duties to other people to make that job that much easier for them, so they can try to get more comfortable, essentially. So, I mean, I think it's a big thought for everyone on any level of the department to think about. Like, there's always more that we can strive for. I mean, we're constantly breaking records in every aspect, but it's a collective effort. Like, if one of us starts to get complacent, it's going to be harder to continue to break those records.
100%. Yeah, and I think you brought up an important word there: complacency. It's very easy to come off a record month and get complacent, and it's almost it's the devil. I mean, it literally is the devil. It's like and this is something that it's an unfortunate part of the job that, like, you get rolling and you feel great or whatever, but you don't innovate or you don't focus on things, and you can feel it slipping, dude. You've all been there before. Raise your little yellow hand if you have not been there before. Where you felt the complacency, or you felt, hey, we had a great week, or we had a great month, or whatever. Hopefully that's not happening when you have one great day, but you get the point. So, all right, cool. So I think everybody sort of felt that way before. All right, let's get more on some of the training stuff and whatnot. Unless I'm missing anything, does anybody have anything else to add on those topics? And feel free to. I'm going to hyperlink this anyway, so people can kind of skip by stuff and whatnot. I just need to do some work on making the hyperlinks or whatever. I didn't realize how easy it was to actually do that. So you put the numbers in. That's it. It's pretty amazing. I think Corey showed me that. All right, so jumping into the training portion of this, guys, what I've been going through, and I want to keep this extremely simple. What I've been trying to go through is Dawn calls it the simplicity of a lead. And this is something that gets lost a lot, I think, in training, and gets overcomplicated in training. And look, I'm subject to especially as we're making training manual changes and whatnot, not really script changes, but training changes and whatnot. It gets very easy to get lost in it and to end up confusing things that shouldn't be confused. So Don has this thing that he's been going through, realizing that he was going through the same thing called simplicity of a lead. And basically what he means by that, and the terminology kind of drives me crazy for reasons that are stupid and irrelevant, but it's just me being a kind of a goofball with it. But the simplicity of a lead essentially means, look what we're out there to do. We're not out there to do any ridiculously complicated job. We're not out there to complicate things for the customers. We're not out there to get them to buy windows. We're not even out there to give them a free service. We're just out there to, well, I guess we technically are to give them a free service, but we're out there to have conversations, right? We're out there to have, pointed conversations with the customers that sometimes lead to appointments that are scheduled, right? And so whenever we're scheduling these appointments, what's important to people? look, it's free. It's no big deal. It's good for a year. This is not a big deal at all. I can't afford new windows right now. No big deal. I'm not interested right now. No big deal. There's no big deal. No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're not interested. It doesn't matter if you can't afford it. It doesn't matter if you have a project to do already. You're doing the roof over. None of this. None of it is a big deal, right? And if we treat it that way in our conversations, and we address the customer that way in a pointed way, and we don't make it a big problem, then we're going to see a lot more success. So one of the things that I've gone through, and I'm going to show, it's going to be tough for me to do over the computer. That maybe, what we should do before I show some of these pitches, I should probably get permission from some of the people or whatever. But one of the things that I noticed in these pitches, and if we were to listen to all of them right now, which would take forever because there's literally probably 2 hours of pitches in there. So we're not going to do all that. But what I noticed in a lot of these people is very, very complicated rebuttals to simple objections. So, the customer says, I'm not interested. And we go through the not interested rebuttal, the can't afford it rebuttal, and then we go through the entire value of the visit before finally asking the customer, do you want an appointment, essentially, in a yes or no question. And I'm not talking about people that have been here for a month. I'm talking about people that have been here for 6 months or a year. And so you have to ask yourself, if that's going on inside the office, right, in a basic role play with some basic objections, what is going on in the field? My concern, if I was you as a leader, is, am I overcomplicating the problems that are very simple? And am I over communicating those issues in a way that is not easily taken? Okay. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that, I'm just going to go back to, because it's the most recent person I work with, which is obviously Caleb. And I use the last person I work with a lot because it's obviously the most recent memory that I have out there on the road. But I look at his problems that he had, and the biggest issue that I saw is that he was not breaking through on the second objection. So the customer was giving him an objection, and he would give the same basic not interested rebuttal every time, get back to the script. The customer would give a follow-up objection, and he would do things as he was leaving, like say, so are you sure this wouldn't be helpful for you? Or stuff like that as he's walking away. So he would go to for example, there was a guy who said that he had all 2-year-old windows, and the windows were not 2 years old. The windows definitely had problems. But even instead of going to patio doors, it was just, in any constructive way, it was just, okay, well, do you have any doors that we can help you with? No. Okay. All right. You have a good day. Right. And then it was, walk away from there. And this is, and it was something that was so natural that he didn't notice that he was doing that. He wasn't if you know this guy, he's not afraid to say something to the customer. He's not afraid to rebuttal people. He thought, I'm being thorough right now, and I'm going through everything that I have to go through. There was a thought that was embedded in his head. So the simple thing I told him when I went to go leave him was break through, make connections and break through, have fun with it and break through. Just keep going when you feel like you can't go anymore. One more rebuttal can go a long way. And so it was that simple thing that we talked about that I think broke through for him. It wasn't overcomplicated. I didn't spend 2 hours going over it with him. I spent, 2 minutes going over it with him. And then when we go through training, I think his training, because we're going to do that right when he gets back, will be like a half hour long. I'm going to actually make a video for him because I'm going to be in Williamsport on Thursday, so I won't be able to do it with him over Zoom or whatever, because we got a packed day on Thursday. So, speaking to that, okay, what I'd really like to hear is, what kind of struggles have you guys had in communicating with some of your guys on the road? When it comes to notes, how do you guys feel in training? And if you feel great and everything's going fantastic, then why are some of these people not at 12, 13 demos a week? Why are we not seeing the 19 demos a week that we would see from some people, this time last year? Where do you guys feel like the disconnection is right now? And dig deep for it. Little yellow hands would be great. I'll wait to see little yellow hands. I'm going to start calling on people. Okay, Seth, go ahead.
Yeah, I think a lot of it might deal with the fact that either A, some things aren't addressed and taken seriously, or B, they're addressed and then they're not followed up on. When we have these walk notes, we're taking the time to really, like you're saying, we're digging deep, we're finding an issue. And sometimes it's as simple as, hey, dude, just get back to basics. Like, follow the script. It's going to see 2 to 3 leads every day. Use the value of the visit and the goal. Need that to absolutely be verbatim. Stuff like that. Other times it's, hey, it's a little more complex. Like, hey, your personal connections are there. You're talking with people and it sounds great. But it sounds like it's even that scripted. You're like, how long you been in the home? 10 years. Oh, cool. Seems like a nice area. Yep. You like your neighbors? Yeah. And it's the same. It's almost as if we scripted for a personal connection, which is we've I wouldn't say it's apathy, but it's definitely like we're running the same conversation at every door, and every door should be different and exciting and fun, and meeting new people and learning about their lives. So the follow-up is huge, being able to make sure that when we are taking the time, just really hammering that in, because it's not practice making perfect, right? It's perfect practice is what my wife says. So it's doing that in application and doing it right over and over again that's going to really make the change that we want to see.
That's a fantastic point. It's a really fantastic point. Couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah, follow-up is so important. Corey and I were going through that today, and maybe that's the next question I have for you, Seth, and for anybody else too, is what is your follow-up? So, Corey and I were talking today, and we sort of went over a system that I used to do back in Boston. Whenever I was, and I understand, guys, this takes discipline. It takes schedule keeping. It takes organization. But in our one-on-ones, in our mid-year reviews, that's what we talked about doing over the course of the next couple of months, was committing to being organized and being creative, making schedules. So Corey and I were talking about it today. And Corey, you're working with Tyler tomorrow, right? So the idea was to reach out to him and say, hey, come in at 11:45 tomorrow to record a pitch, practice a little bit, make that person so important for that day. For that day, they are involved in the scripting in the van. They are one of the 3-on-1s, definitely, if you're doing 3-on-1s. They are pitching in the van. They are playing customer in the van. Maybe they're doing, both, but have them involved. You're dropping off everybody else first, and then you're working with that person. So while you're driving with them, talk to them, communicate. Hey, what's going on with you? You don't want it to become like a sob fest kind of deal, because it's not going to set up the day the right way. If the person's just talking about how their 7 dogs died or whatever, then obviously pitching doors might be difficult for them. So maybe you tell them, hey, listen, why don't you play the customer for me? Give me a tough time. I'm gonna, and you maybe you keep it work related or whatever, but you keep the conversation going, and you participate in a fun way. Then you get on the road with the person. Let them do like 80% of the doors. Give them a break. Show them doors. Show them that you want to do it, but let them do a lot of the doors as well. Let them show you what they do as well. Make it that you're working with. Listen, I'm working with you today. I'm not trying to just train you today. I'm working with you today. I want you to treat it like you are showing me what to do. You do your job like you are showing me what to do. Okay. I want you training me just as much as I am training you. I might be taking notes for you here, but treat this like you're teaching me. Make this the most important day. Do what you do every day, but do it extremely well. Do it extremely clear, right? Then, throughout the day, I wouldn't pause at every house. What we were talking about doing is, going through basic notes as you go door to door. Like if there's a change to be made, especially if it's a small one that can be changed easily, point it out. But once or twice a day, maybe 3 times, depending, pause for a second and go, okay, hey, how you feeling? How's your pitch feeling? You feeling okay about this? Okay, cool. Hey, practice is whatever, right? At the end of the day, don't spend 2 hours going over notes with the person. Spend 5 minutes going over notes with the person. Just a couple minutes. And then the next day, follow up with them. Have them come in at 11 o'clock, and from 11 to 11:45, before your 11:45 comes in, go over the notes with them, spend the time with them, actually show them that you care, do the follow-up with them, and then put them in the schedule for next week to work with them again if it's needed, right? That's what Corey and I had gone through. Now, if you guys could, let's say the first 2 people that raised their little yellow hands, what is your system now? And do you feel like it's thorough enough? Do you feel like it's pre-planned out, or is it just kind of what you do? And I know for me, when I first started in management, before I got into it, it was just what I did, and it was not good. So just be open about it. but I'm going to call on a couple people unless I see two little yellow hands. And I'd prefer Seth to go last if he's going to do this one too. I'd like you to, Seth, but just go last because you just went. Tony, go ahead.
I think, what Seth said was a whole lot of what I had kind of figured out over the past month or so with mine when we opened up hiring again and getting used to training again. That follow-up really is the things that I found was exactly that it was almost a scripted connection with people. So I would remind my guys that on that follow-up day, hey, you're supposed to be having fun with this. It can't be the same thing at every single door. Something that I can also probably go into in initial training now as well. But the notes as well, that's something I got, a lot more pointed rather than having a lot of everything kind of put together. I got it organized. Okay, this is what, the main thing that I think would get you more production, and this is why that's going to get you to where you want to be, that sort of thing. So, putting that into perspective for them, I think has been very useful.
Okay, and I want to ask too, just because, like I said, and I'd like to hear both things. What do you feel like you still work on too? Because I mean, I think you'd agree with me. The team's not where you want it to be, right? I mean, like it's not like you guys have arrived and you guys are averaging probably 20 demos a week, and and a bad week less than that, and a good week maybe a little bit more than that. And you probably want to be up with those guys, closer to 30 demos a week. So, what do you feel like you can still work on that you might like need help with, or need some advice on that maybe somebody else here can help you with?
Yeah, definitely one of the things that I need to work on through that initial training. One of the big things is being able to see who my audience is and catering to them in terms of that. I know when we had walked together, when we were doing some initial training as well, there was a whole lot of, on my end, there was an expectation towards them that they should know, all these things. They should know every little detail. And I think it would be helpful for me to kind of, not in a, not to put it in a bad sense, but maybe dumb things down, simplify things a little bit more when I explain them. And give more opportunity for them to ask questions and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, think about how screwed you'd be if day one you were getting all the information, right? So that makes sense. That's good. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool, excellent. Seth, go ahead. Unless anybody else wants to go too, I'm sure Seth is happy to give somebody else the opportunity to go here. He was going to go last on this one. So if anybody else has anything to say, then we definitely appreciate it. All right, Seth, take it away. Go ahead.
I think a really important thing that Harry and I have been doing in Williamsport is being making sure that everybody's accountable, making sure that these notes that we're taking are followed up with, and with whatever organizational tool you want to use. What we use is Google Documents. And Harry and I share all of our walk notes with one another. So next time that either of us work with that person, we know exactly what they were struggling with, what date. And then if we see repeats, then we have we have another more stern conversation about why we're doing the exact same thing. And we preface our time with everybody just to tell them, look, like I'm dedicating this time to you. It's a good time for me to see what you're doing out there. It's also a good time for you to tell me any struggles that you already know that you're kind of dealing with. But, above all, like I'm going to be spending this time typing up really detailed notes with you. And I want you to keep it. You have a hard copy with you, keep it in your bag. And then if you find yourself maybe at a 1, 2, or even, forbid a 0 lead day, look back and see what you're doing, because history has this great tendency of repeating itself. And I guarantee at least 1 or 2 of those points are going to crop back up. And the walk notes and how we've structured them in the past, because, there's always potential that everybody on the team has. I believe that wholeheartedly. Whether they achieve that and whether they try and improve is their choice. But something that that I've always respected and really appreciated about Paul is his candor and him not fluffing things, right? He's very pointed about things. If you have shit that you got to work on, man, he's going to tell you. So what we like to do for our walk notes is a good sandwich. We have our initial slice of bread that's just accolades. Like, look, you've done really well here. You've shown that you can set 3-4 leads every day. We just got to get you back to that, make a couple of these changes. You're going to be in good shape. And then it gets to the meat and potatoes where you're very open with this person. You're saying, this sucked. Like, you got to address this. Like, we're asking yes or no questions. This is 101. What are you doing? Or, we're not rebuttaling at all. Like, you just have to have that open conversation. And people, it's messed up, but they will blame you if you are not holding them accountable for things. It's weird, but it's true. And I've seen it happen a bunch. People expect you to hold them accountable, and they respect you when you do. So being able to say, look, dude, this is what I'm seeing. I'm not going to put up with it. You don't have to be an asshole about it, but saying, like, this is what we need to improve. And then we always end our notes with saying, look, it's just these small changes. You're going to be back on track, 3-4 leads every single day. It's going to be great. Looking forward to it. And then we follow up with them, a week. We give them that time to make those changes. And then we follow up again. For myself, I can definitely be more thorough with following up and do a lot more cross training with Harry. So that it's not only his notes, but then he sees the changes that they make and just add another layer of accountability of, us both really looking at everyone's performance, because they will appreciate it and you will be better for it.
Yeah. And I want to remind everybody too, because I keep forgetting, and I think here's what we're going to do with this, is that this has become like a team lead session, which I think is important. I think it's important for us to go over. Right. And I think it's important. I mean, canvassers can watch this too. I mean, obviously we have people that are perspective and growth, and I think it's important for them to understand where our mindset is, but keep in mind who this audience is going to too. Just so I think that we've been fine so far, but I just want to remind everybody that our audience is everybody. So just, if you're going through some of your systems and stuff like that, just be clear on that. Right. So don't worry, Seth, you didn't say anything that I think people can't hear, but I just want to remind everybody that before somebody does, and then, everybody sees it and it's out there for everybody. Right. So, but what I'll say is that you're right. And we don't have time for it either, guys. Like we just don't have time for it. We don't have time for the bullshit. We don't have time for the pettiness and the lack of, effort from people and stuff. Well, again, whether that's in management or it's in the canvassing position, growth doesn't allow us to have time for that. And thank God it doesn't, by the way, too. The biggest time killer is this kind of stuff, 100%. So thank God that we don't have time for that kind of stuff, because if we did, then there'd be a deeper problem, And so I think that you're 100% right, Seth. And think about this too, for people in Central, and this goes for canvassers as well, is you don't have to Google Doc with anybody, because nobody Google Doc with for you. Eventually that will, in West, it's a good system. And eventually, as we grow to a new structure, that will be extremely important. And maybe we'll have Williamsport do like a session on that or something like that. But right now, I mean, we're walking with your guys as a novelty, but that's exactly what it is a novelty, right? I mean, you have full control over these teams, and that's that can be a difficulty, but it's not a curse. I mean, you have autonomy over these teams. We want you to be independent. We have a system, and I think that we all largely agree with the system and script and stuff like that, and that's great. I think that's one of the best things about our department, is that we have a level of agreement on that stuff. But we want you to have some autonomy. And, I think that largely, there's places where I fail for sure. Organization, sometimes from a leadership perspective, I'm very absent-minded. And one of the biggest struggles that I need to fix is follow up with people, because I forget, or honestly, like, think about these training videos, right? And I'm just going to be very candid with this, and this is more of a vulnerable thing, is that the last like week, when I haven't done these training videos, I was supposed to do training videos a week ago, and I'm like, I shouldn't have to do this shit. I have other shit that I want to do. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm just being honest. Like that's the way that I felt about it. Is it right? Probably not, whatever, but everybody has their times, whatever. And that's just, that's where I was at mentally. And so, and it's funny, because I can always tell when I'm like going mentally off because Seth calls me and says, "Hey, is everything okay?" Because you seem like you're kind of screwed up. And it's like, okay, well, Seth is noticing it, that I probably have some sort of mental disorder that I need to figure out here. You know, and then you get back on track. You know what I'm saying? And everybody kind of needs that. You know what I'm saying? But that's the way that it works. You know, and so I mean, everybody has their thing, right? Everybody has their. But follow up for me is one of the more difficult things for me is that. And so don't take that disease from me. Don't have the same problem as I do with that. You don't have to. And everybody has their own thing. Everybody has their own issue. So I think that Seth is 100% right. Follow up is super important from a team lead perspective. Look, you can make it simple. Make it as simple as possible. It does not need to be complicated at all. Like just, you know what these guys' issues are, know your team's numbers, know your team. And especially if you want to grow into some sort of regional management position or something like that, you like Seth, and same thing for Mo. If I call these guys at any point in time and say, hey, what was Aiden's cancellation rate for last week? Then Mo needs to know that. Hey, how much did you guys do in sales over the course of the last 30 days? Mo needs to know that. Sorry, that might be a surprise to you, Mo, but you need to know that. And so that's the thing that is going to be expected if you want to have team leads under you. That's going to be deeply expected. And so you got to think then, how do I become the right person for the job? You know what I'm saying? Because I don't think a lot of people are prepared to move into a role like that. And it's a big commitment and it's a big change. And it's a big change in your life. You know, when we get this structure together and stuff like that, in whatever form it takes, you know, I don't want to say too much right now, but it's a big life change for you. You're going to a very high level management role. It's not a joke. You know, this is a lot of people. There's a lot of stuff. And so you got to remember that. And for canvassers that are watching this, understand that like this department, for the way better, one way or the other, before wintertime, like fully will be changed in a great way. Everybody will do better. Everybody will make more money. Everybody will have more growth opportunities available to them in sales and in our department. We'll have a structure put together for everything. But the number one thing that helps us out is cooperation. If I wasn't working on these training videos right now, I would be working on that system and that would be getting done quicker. And so follow-up is super important. And I'm glad that you brought that up, Seth, because that's where I think that we probably collectively fail most is in the follow-up, you know? All right, let's get on some script stuff. Unless anybody's got anything to say to that too, you know, I'd be happy to, again, you know, just raise your hands if there's something that you want to say at any point in time about this stuff, any point in time. Okay. Let's do some pitching. Okay. We're going to make this quick because it's 10:13. I want to get off this over the next 15 minutes. We've been on since 9. This is an hour and a half worth of video almost. This is great, guys, too. I'm happy to do this more often. I think that from a business perspective, when we have, like, you know, I got this meeting I got to go to in late July, and we're going to try to get a lot of things together for canvassing that we've been asking corporate for a long time. And I think that these forums will be extremely helpful. I think the only thing that I would change is if I knew we'd have this many, you know, leaders on, then I would have given you guys each specific things to talk about and, you know, asked you what you wanted to talk about and had everybody participate more. And so that's what we'll have to change for next time. But can I get a theoretical amen from anybody that agrees that this is a good forum for this, that this is something we should do more often? All right, cool. That's a good amount of you guys. It's good. It's good to see. Excellent. We'll have to do this then. I think that it's very helpful. It's helpful for me, and it's a way for you guys to be able to communicate issues that, you know, maybe I don't see. And like I'm learning stuff here, like the Google Doc thing, I think is very helpful for, think about this, right? Like follow-up wasn't even on my mind at all. And then it was brought up by Seth, for example, right? And it might be in a slightly different format or whatever, given the way that the department's structured. That's maybe the best point that was brought up there is follow-up is extremely important. That's where a lot of people are missing the mark, including myself. So that little remark, it sparks change and it sparks, you know, innovation. So let's get on some pitching here. All right. Who wants to play customer for me? No, nobody. All right, Tony, go ahead. I'm going to knock on your door now.
Hello.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Duffy. Mr. DeFelice?
Yeah, it's me.
Hey, Mr. DeFelice. I'm with Renewal by Anderson. We just did some work for your neighbor, actually, Mrs. Smith, right down the street on 123 Main Street. The reason why I'm out here is it looked like you had the original vinyl windows in the home. How long have you lived there, sir?
I've been here about 15 years.
Okay, so you've been here since the house was built then?
Yeah. We didn't build it, but it was new.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful neighborhood, sir. It looks like a lot of the houses look like, must have built this part of the neighborhood first then, right? And they built down like that?
Yeah, we were kind of the early people in.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah, because it looked like, I mean, they're still building houses down there, even, right? So that's great, sir. Well, it's a beautiful area, sir. The reason why I came up is because, again, we were doing some windows for your neighbor right across the street here. They have the same windows that you have. I was just over talking to them, and it looked like the plastic on their windows is starting to deteriorate, the vinyl windows here. So, sir, I wanted to point out one thing that the neighbors were showing me in their house. The windows up front here, if you look at the bottom here, they're starting to warp to where there's a gap where the sash, the part that opens and closes, meets the sill. Now, for the neighbors out here, it was mainly on the back of their home because they're facing the sun that way. For you, it's probably mainly on the front of the home, I would guess, right?
Yeah, it's the south side there.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Yeah, and that you're familiar probably with plastic and how it deteriorates, over time, and whatnot. So, what I noticed on your windows specifically, sir, and the neighbors' windows as well, is that some of the components in the bottom here, right near the sill, were starting to warp, and they were exposing, what looks to be like mold in the corners and edges of the windows. Now, how long ago did you start to notice that, sir?
Actually, you had just pointed that out to me now. I hadn't noticed.
Okay. Now, a lot of the windows, sir, the neighbors were, the main reason why they had called us was because they had checked the energy efficiency and realized that their house was not really sound when it comes to energy efficiency. Now, they were dealing with more of a draft on the front of the home, which would be the back of your home. So would you say that you have a draft more on the front or the back of the home?
Not really that I noticed. It's just kind of, it is what it is. I've been here 15 years. Nothing's really changed.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And I mean, I think it's one of the things where it was thinking about this the other day. So when I wake up every day, I'm freezing. The temperature hasn't changed in the house, but my body has changed, right? So over time, you're not going to realize stuff unless it's like a shock to the system, And so you've been in a house for 15 years. I'm sure the energy bills have gone up, and you maybe just associated that with the economy or whatever else, right? But it looks like that you're going to eventually have to do something with the windows. By the way, that was side note. That was really weird. I don't know what the hell I said all that. That was really bizarre about waking up in the morning and this and that. But it looks like you're going to have to do something with the windows in the next couple of years. May I make a suggestion?
Yeah, if you just keep my body comments out of it, that'd be cool.
I will say that's something I would say at the door 100%. So I'm not gonna that's what I would say at the door. So so what I'd suggest, sir, is that give me an objection there too. So may I make a suggestion?
Now is not a good time, in terms of the economy, the way that's going. It's not the time that I want to be spending money.
No, yeah, absolutely, sir. And it's definitely a weird time out there. And that was one of your neighbors' concerns I was talking to earlier too. The thing is, though, the thing that I talked to your neighbor about, and the reason why they're having us come out to visit is because what we talked about is just getting an assessment on the windows to check which ones are less energy efficient, what kind of problems that you might be experiencing, And if we can't be a service team, then we just recommend someone else who can. But if we could help you, what I told your neighbors that we'd have somebody come out, take a look at your windows, show you what we have to offer, and then leave you with a free price quote. So that way, down the line, when you're already, at least you have the information set aside. Now, I'm sure that at least could be helpful to you. At least getting you that information could be helpful to you.
Yeah, it sounds helpful. It's just right now is not a good time. Just not interested at the moment.
Oh yeah, no doubt, sir. I mean, look, the goal of the visit would just be though to go over your options, answer your questions, and leave you with a quote that's good for an entire year. So then you can do this if you ever decided to, even at your convenience. That being said, I have your last name here is DeFelice. What's your first?
Yeah, my first name's Tony.
Okay, give me another objection. Be a little bit tough on me.
Yeah, well, I got 2 kids in school though. It's not something that's even going to happen in the next year.
Yeah. It sounds like you got a lot of stuff going on. What school do they go to?
Shippensburg.
Oh, awesome. Cool. Both of them go there?
Yep.
That's great. It's a really good school. It's a really fun area too. That's awesome. Do you get down to visit often?
I wish I did more. It's just right now we're working a whole lot because we're trying to save up money because of, like I said, where the economy is.
Yeah, man, definitely. No, it's good to focus on that. And it sounds like you got a lot of stuff going on. Well, I'll tell you, sir, most people, what they use the information for, and when I was talking to your neighbors, the Jacksons down the street, what they said they were going to use the information for, it's just, informational. So that way, when they do decide to do it down the line, whether that's 5 or 10 years, they know whether or not we're the company to call back. Because we're already out in the area, it's real easy for us to jump over and just kind of pass some savings along to you. That being said, sir, I just need a little bit of information from you. First, what time of day typically works best to come see? Would you say mornings, afternoons, or evenings?
Probably evenings. I get home
Okay.
around 5.
Okay, great. I'll take note of that, sir. Now, I have your last name here as Jones. What did you say your first was?
My
Or
first
DeFelice?
name is Tony. Yep.
Okay, great. And I have your address as 123 Main Street, sir. What's your phone number?
My phone number is 6.
Okay, great. And when we come to visit, we do need a second phone number just to make sure we can get a hold of you. Would that be a spouse's number or work phone number?
My spouse's number. It's right
Okay.
here.
All right, great. And what is that number?
4.
Okay, fantastic. That's a short number. That's really good. You guys must have gotten there really early. That's great to see. And what's your email address, sir?
It's TonyD123 at Comcast.
Okay, damn good. That's good. You guys got in there real early too. That's nice to see. Nice to see. All right, so well, before I forget to, is there any other numbers? Like, do you have a work number or a house phone number or something like that, just in case we can't get a hold of you?
Those two are fine.
Okay, cool. All right, sounds good, sir. Well, to do this for you, I just want to remind you it's completely free service. All we ask is that we come out to visit you, set aside at least 90 minutes, whether we need it or not. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, 90 minutes is cool, I guess. I can squeeze it in probably between when I get home and dinner.
Sure. Yeah. We just want to ask for that time. So just so we can answer any questions that you have, but I assure you that we're very respectful of your time. And second, when we visit to discuss the project, we do need to meet with all the owners of the property. That would include you, a spouse, a family member, or significant other. You did mention your spouse. What was their name?
Her name's Jenna, but she works nights. It's going to be difficult to get us both. We're pretty much never home together.
Yeah. Well, and, we do come out 7 days a week, sir, mornings, afternoons, and evenings. So I'm sure that we can find a good time that works for the both of you to answer, all of your questions. Okay. So I'll let the office do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That sounds
Okay,
good.
great. All right, excellent, sir. And before I go, I just got a couple questions for you. Now, I want to side note this because I did talk about this yesterday in the training videos. So we went through the window problems pretty effectively. I think that I always try to make it when I'm pitching. So it's not like easy, like slam dunk problems. Like, everything has fog, all the windows are broken. Corey used the example today of all the windows are broken, like jokingly. Like obviously that would be an easier house to book. So, what's your average, right? Like 15-year-old vinyl windows. Hey, there's a couple problems here. So whenever I run into that, or when I do the thing about, hey, we're just going to come out and inspect them for you, right? Like, and I go that route. I always, first of all, I never just say we're just going to come out to inspect them. Obviously, I say exactly what I've said in this pitch, but I do want to side note and just say that I think it's important to put very big emphasis on the window problems on the follow-up. And I hear people saying, every time I go through this with people, they say the same thing. They say, oh yeah, well, I let the customer fill this stuff out. And that's fine on a normal appointment. And I think it's a good idea, like show them or whatever and have them check the boxes with you. Great. But those are just boxes to check. Those do not give specific notes. The sales reps have asked us to be exact in their notes because it's helpful. Well, guess what? The call center wants the same thing, and not because they're selfish and they want us to do anything for them. They want the same thing because it helps prevent cancellations of the appointments because they're exact notes. The customer gets it more. And so this is your time to rebuild interest. So when I go through this, if someone's watching this later on or whatever, please notice specific evidence that I'm putting on building the need closer towards the end of the appointment, obviously with respect to the customer's time. If they're saying, hey, I need you to hurry up a little bit, I'm going to continue to go through this stuff, as efficiently as I feel like I need to, as effectively as I feel like I need to. But I might be a little bit quicker, right? Sir, I know that your neighbors, most of them have roughly 20 windows in the home. I'm guessing that you have roughly the same amount.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, and you said the house was built 15 years ago, so these are all 15 years old then.
Yep.
Okay, all right. Now, from your neighbors, they said they all had double hung style windows with one bay window in the back. Is that correct for you too?
Yeah, we do, and a sliding glass door as well.
Sounds good. Yeah, and I'll ask you a question about that, sir, and your other front door in a moment too. But before I get into that, sir, I just want to ask you a couple questions about the windows here. Look, like I said, we're going to give you a full assessment when we come out. We're going to go through everything. We'll make sure that we check all the energy efficiency for you, see which windows are giving you the biggest problems, and give you a full assessment, a full audit on the windows. That being said, I want to make sure that I give the person that comes out to visit the most accurate and vital information. And so I just want to go through a couple things with you, sir. I pointed out to you that your windows were warping here. Now, that's because they're made out of cheap plastic. Vinyl is cheap plastic. That's the reason why these windows are starting to experience problems. Most houses are built with those today, but I just wanted to point that out to you, okay? Cheap plastic windows are going to come with a lot of other issues too. Now, I know that you mentioned that they might not have like drafts coming through the home and stuff like that. My guess would be that when it is winter outside, though, and you get closer to the windows, maybe even the patio door, that you do start to feel a little bit of draft. And what rooms would you say is the worst for that?
The back of the house mainly. I can tell it does get colder in the winter.
Okay, I'll put a point here. I'll put a note here. Now, the neighbors down the street they had a big thing where a couple of the windows were really hard to open and close. And we basically broke it down to the windows started to warp. So if you look at your windows here, sir, you see how the glass is sort of warping?
Yeah.
Like it looks like a funhouse mirror. That's
Uh-huh.
called glass impaction. That's happening because of the warping of the window. Okay, and so those will become tight and difficult to open and close. So they might not be like, impossible to open, but what rooms would you say have the biggest problem opening and closing the windows?
Definitely my bedroom upstairs. That's really the only windows that we open and close, so that's where I'm noticing it.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, I did notice that it looked like the latch, and at least the garage window over here wasn't connecting to the lock, the hook part. So that window looks like it doesn't lock, correct? How many more windows do you have like that as well?
All the ones in the upstairs front, definitely, it's tough to get them locked.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a dangerous issue, sir. I mean, it's also an energy efficiency concern. You're probably losing from the ones that don't lock anyways, about 30% of the energy efficiency in those windows. So we can definitely check that for you. Now, I pointed out the mold, sir. That could be indicative of a different issue where mold is growing in the sill of the window. We'll just check that for you to see if that's a big problem. Now, you see how all of your windows here have two little holes at the bottom of them?
Yeah.
Okay, those are called weep holes. A lot of people don't know this, and some contractors actually accidentally cover them up. But those are meant to drain the water out of the window. The issue is that they're not very effective, sir. That's why we don't use them. We use a sill that's sloped, so the water just kind of rolls off it. So the water sits inside of those window sills and just gets moldy. And the water has to go somewhere, so it runs into the actual wall and the sill of the window. And that can cause a lot of different rotting issues and mold issues. So we'll check that for you when we come out as well. But you definitely have the weep holes on the entire house, right? Every window's the same here.
Yep. Yeah, they're all vinyl.
Yeah. Okay. So they're all the cheap plastic vinyl. That makes sense. That being said, sir, you did mention that you had a patio door on the back. Now, obviously, sir, you mentioned it for a reason. I have to imagine that you're having the same problems as the Jones right down the street. Their door was just having a little bit of issues open and close, and they said that the hardware on the door was starting to wear down as well. So is that the same problem for you too?
Yeah, it gets stuck in the track a good bit. You got to kind of lift it to open and close it.
Oh, that's all. Forget that. That's always a pain. That's what I don't like about those doors, the sliding ones. Now we do sliding doors, of course, and our sliding doors work beautifully. We also have French patio doors too. What I can do is I can have the person show you both those two things. Is that something that you might be interested in?
Yeah, absolutely. Anything to replace what's going on there now.
Okay, all right, great. Now, as far as the front door goes here, sir, this is the thing on the home. I mean, the windows looked a little bit rough, to be honest with you. They're cheap plastic vinyl. That you mentioned that the door has problems. Your neighbor's doors have had problems too. This door looks like it's a little bit newer. I don't see any big problems here, sir. Are you having any problems with the front door?
Not that I really noticed. Maybe a little bit of wind coming through on a real windy day, but
All right, well, we'll test that while we're out there too. While we're out here too, you could just think about it, maybe examine it a little bit, but definitely the cheap plastic windows that you have here, we'll take a look at. We'll take a look at the the cheap plastic door in the back too. Maybe I'm weighing on a little bit heavy with the cheap plastic, but this front entry door, at least we can take a look at while we're out here. All right, sir. So thank you so much for that information. I promise I won't be very much longer here. I just want to point out a couple of things for you. So I just checked off box 1 here, sir, which mentions at least 90 minutes for the visit for, again, both you and Mrs. DeFelice. Box 2, renewal by Anderson, does everything by the book. With the telemarketing laws being so strict today, we do ask you to check and sign box number 2, just to point out that we can contact you about this appointment. So please check and sign box 2. Now, side note, we're not doing that right now. I get that. But it was asked to me the other day by a couple of people, actually, if they can start to do that to get their demo rate up. Hey, maybe it's another way to get the customer to commit to the appointment. And so I said, yeah, sure, no problem. I mean, we used to do that all the time. So, I invited people to do that. I mean, if someone is signing something, they probably are a little bit more involved in it, right? So people can do that or they don't have to. That's fine either way. At this point, we're not making people do it, but I just wanted, that's why I did that there. Okay. All right. So, sir, I'm going to get the office on the phone. We do have a couple representatives available here over the next couple of days, today, tomorrow, outside chance like Thursday. So while I'm on the phone, start thinking about your schedule, sir. And I also want to remind you too, and please remind Mrs. DeFelice, since she's not here, that when we come out to visit, we're going to give you the full assessment on the windows. We'll make sure that we're extremely thorough and answer any questions that you have. And the biggest thing, sir, is again, we're leaving with a free price quote that's good for an entire year. At this point, sir, there are no other major window companies that are offering quotes that are good for a full year. Because of price of inflation, we're the only major window company out there in this area that's offering free price quotes that are fully guaranteed for 1 full year. Okay. So I'm going to get the office on the phone. We'll just take a second. So then I call up. Great. We set up the appointment. Fantastic. Okay, sir. Before I go, I just got a couple things that I want to go through with you. Okay. It's the end of the month. It's the end of June. And I'm glad that I spoke to you now, because right now we're offering, it's the biggest promotion that we've ever had, because we're kind of celebrating our 25th anniversary, technically our 27th, but because of COVID, we'll call it the 25th, right? We skipped those 2 years. So we're offering 25% off the total cost. So you don't have to do anything, but if you were to, then you get 25% off the entire cost of the windows and installation. And sir, the biggest thing probably is, and you see the economy, you mentioned it a couple times here. Right now, we're offering no money down, no interest, and no payments for 2 full years. So again, you don't have to do anything, but if you decided to, then at least you'll have that available to you, which is not available anywhere anymore, right? So at least you'll have that available to you, okay? Do you have any questions about that, sir?
No, that sounds pretty good.
Okay, great. Last thing too, sir, you've been real kind to me today, and I know that I interrupted and looked like you were kind of busy here in the yard, so I appreciate the time that you're giving me. So I do want to give you this $500 gift card. It takes an additional $500 off any window project that you decide to do with us. So look, if you decide to do it in the future, at least you have that set aside. Now, sir, before I go, is there anything else that I can do for you at all?
No, thank you.
All right, so you have a beautiful home here. Please, again, just make sure that you give all this information and show Miss DeFelice all this information as well, okay? But besides that, thank you, sir. Have a great day.
You too.
Okay, great. Now, besides before we get off here, because it's 10:33 right now, and I'm sorry for keeping you guys on this so late. I know you guys didn't sign up for that, but and I want to get into more pitching, but not right now. It's 10:30. It's literally my anniversary. My wife's probably trying to kill me. So protein shakes. We're gonna watch the protein shakes. Does anybody have, besides my weird whole, waking up in the morning thing, which I understand, by the way, on the road too, people that work with me know I would. But besides that, does anybody have any critiques for that or questions about that pitch at all?
At least just in my experience, some people who I have, a little bit of difficulty, I work really hard to get through to them, the appointment. If I start inflating things like going from windows to patio door to asking about a front door, things like that, I've had some people get scared off because of inflating, adding more things on rather than hitting on more points on what we've already established as an issue. I would just ask, how can I combat that? How can I get around that?
Yeah, I think that first of all, I would say to any person, you gotta go for everything. You do want to, the way I would frame it to the customer is that we want to make sure that we're thorough here. And so we're offering it up as an option and whatnot, right? So for example, the reason why I brought up the patio doors in the way that I did is because whenever I asked you about the amount of windows, you said, yes, I have this amount of windows and a patio door. Okay. If you hadn't said that, then I wouldn't have brought that up like that. I would have said, sir, obviously we're coming out here anyways. So I just want to make sure, do you have anything like any older patio doors on the back of the home or anything like that? So I would just offer it up as a service, except for that you had already mentioned the patio door. But we had all that together. And so whenever I mentioned the front door, the way I did it is the same way I would ask the patio door typically is just, hey, while we're out here, is there anything, it looks with the front door, I even said, looks pretty good, but is there anything wrong with it? Is there anything that we can help you with? So if I'm already getting the appointment, I'm typically just asking as a courtesy, hey, as a courtesy, Mr. Jones, we're already out here. It's might as well take a look while we're already out here, kind of thing, right? But if it's brought up by the customer, then I'm going to ask about it, right? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, you passed the point of commitment already. They've already committed, and being thorough in that. I think that takes a lot.
And I think, and then Seth, I'm going to let you speak on that in a second, but I think also too that just because you're uncomfortable, maybe your uncomfortability with it is what causes the customer to sort of turn off as well. So you got to kind of examine that too. It might not be that, it might be the way that you're going into it, or it might not be that at all. Your level of uncomfortability though could definitely negatively impact the way the customer feels too. Seth, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you did a really subtle thing there that can be powerful at the door, which is a little bit of stick and carrot, where you're like, look, we're going to stop out. We're going to look at these 20, 15-year-old vinyls that are seeing a good bit of warping and energy loss here. This front door looks great though. Like this looks newer. I doubt you're seeing anything here, but like, do you want us to look at that while we're there? And it feeds a little bit into their ego where they're going to say, oh yeah, no, this door is great. It's holding up really well. And then, you bring that back down and you say, well, okay, well then, yeah, it sounds like windows are definitely a priority then. They're past their lifespan. The door looks like it's holding up great though. And that way it's, they feel good about something that they're doing. And it's brought the commitment level down. We're like, oh, thank God I'm not rebuilding the house, but windows, oh, I guess he is seeing these problems. Yeah. Let's at least take a look.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's a good point too. I don't even know if I was trying to do that. It's probably natural at this point. You pick the things up. That's a very good point there. And I think that the biggest thing, I laid it on very thick with the cheap plastic vinyl, and I sort of want to stretch a point with some of it to make a point. But being thorough is not a bad thing. It's just about how you deal with the customer. That's a really great point though. Yeah, it's if you can compliment them in any way, then that's fantastic too. What else? Any other critiques for the pitch or anything? Mostly I'm just holding you hostage here. Is that what we're saying? All right, look, we're going to do this again. Okay. But my closing remarks would be, we talked a lot about affecting change. And so I would hope that everybody on the call here, including myself, I took a lot from this, from you guys. Affecting change is what we want to do. And so let's go out there tomorrow and make that our mission. And every day, let's make that our mission. You got to wake up and feel good though. You have to wake up and feel good. And I've realized that over the last, probably year or so that I don't wake up and feel good every day. It's not about, I don't mentally not feel good. I mean, physically feel good. And that impacts the way that I perform. And so the last thing that I'd leave you with, and then I open up to everybody else is, make yourself a machine, make yourself, feel great about what you're doing, and do that by affecting change. If you're not being effective, you're not going to feel good. And so don't, drown in your sorrows and stuff like that. It's not going to help you. It doesn't matter where you're at or what job you're doing. It's not going to help you. Find a way to affect change. Find a way to make yourself relevant, important, to make your team relevant and important. You know how good it makes me feel every day to wake up and know that we're going to be leading the stat boards? And I'm sure it makes you guys feel good too, but make your team that. Make your team leading the stat boards. Say, hey, this team is the best right now. They're getting the most demos right now. But they've done that, over the last couple months. They weren't a couple months ago. A couple months ago, take Williamsport right now is probably number one on the leaderboard. And you go, okay, well, damn, that's great. Guys, one of their guys that's number one on the leaderboard is brand new to the company. I don't even, Jolan, I can't say his name correctly. Sorry, Jolin, if Jolin, right? Did you get that right?
Jolin, you got it.
All right, cool. I'm sorry if you're listening to this, man, later on or whatever, I will constantly screw that up, but you're doing a fantastic job. And you just started. So, keep it up and, go after that, guys. If they can make this guy who's never done this before successful like that, and of course, with his cooperation, his help, and with him working as hard as hell, right, then you guys can do the same thing. And so go after that. Wake up with a purpose every day, right? So that's my closing statement there. I'm going to open up to you guys. Whatever you guys want to say, little yellow hands, please. And if we could have a couple of you guys, that'd be great. I'll call on people, dude. Don't make me call on people. All right, Mo, we haven't heard from you.
Hey.
What do you think, man?
No, honestly, speaking on that, Jolin is doing really good. And Rocco was just talking about it the other day. He was like, I was in the same training class with him, and he's number 2 in like the country or something. I was like, yeah, I mean, what's stopping you from being number 2 or even being number 1? He's like, no, you're right. I definitely got to tighten up on what I'm doing. And the friendly competition thing, between not just like each other in the department, but different department kind of pushes us, and the environment as well, like in the culture of it and what we do. I'm sorry, I kind of just went off topic there. I didn't know exactly what you were at.
No, you didn't go off topic. That's perfect, dude. Perfect. Absolutely true. Our culture, we drive the culture. Those conversations drive the culture. Have them, All right. Anybody want to offer themselves up, or I'm going to call on somebody else? Corey. Closing statement.
Yeah, I mean, the way that pretty much everyone here just facilitates growth since I've been here, it's just a crazy thing to see in any company. I mean, from people that have been here for a while, for people that just started, it's an important thing to realize that everyone on every level wants you to grow. You're not going to get that at any other company you go work for, especially not like moving boxes in a warehouse. Like, you're not going to get that anywhere. Take advantage of it. Do everything you can to grow and get where you want to be.
Amen. Amen. Who else we got? Harry, go ahead.
I think what's worked well for us is getting a positive environment as far as getting everybody to really get along, but also creating the competitive edge. We had Ethan on the number 1. Goss started when he was there. Goss wanted it. Goss took it. Jolin wants it. Jolin's going to go get it, and anything and everything he needs. He asked for it. We try to give it to him as quickly as we can and as diligently as we can.
Excellent. Good to hear. Good stuff. All right, let's just keep this rolling, Tony.
I can really piggyback off of kind of what Corey said, the facilitating growth between people here, not only in a career standpoint, but, as a person. Back before I started here, my background was in bartending, and I was going to community college. And then I decided I was going to get some, whatever marketing job for the summer. And then it grew into career for me. A year before that, I was, going nowhere with my life and, drinking a fifth of vodka every night in my parents' basement. And now I've, facilitated growth in my own life where it's like, I've got a beautiful apartment, a nice life I've made for myself, and clear-cut goals and real structure through it with an amazing support group ourselves, people that work alongside us and above us as well. I just am extremely happy to be a part of that.
And Jenna, don't forget about your girl. That's important too. So
yeah, yeah, this is going on YouTube, so I try not to let her name out there too much.
Don't worry. I think you're safe, dude. I think you're okay. But that would be real. Someone would have to be a real creep to. So my bad. We can cut that part out. I think maybe. But no, you're right. Having a good
Doesn't mind the attention.
And you know, I brought her up because it does seem like you have outside of here a good support structure too, and you've been through it. And we talked about before, you know, having to really grow quickly into the position that you were in. I think that that didn't help, and you've now taken advantage of the fact that you realize like, hey, there's a lot of stuff that I need to learn here, and so keep learning. It's really, really important. And Seth, let's end with you here. If you give us a quick statement, that'd be great.
Yeah, something that we've been focusing on kind of lately, and I'm not sure how applicable this is. We can enact a lot of change here at work, and we have this incredible opportunity to, you know, achieve the American dream. We can, you know, work hard and be paid commensurately for our efforts. And for my BioShock fans out there, you know, like is a man not entitled to the sweat of his own brow, you know? So this is something that you can be rewarded incredibly well for your work and diligence and your grit. Something that we've been really focusing on lately is that there's obviously more too that we can do. And I'm not, you know, dictating people's lives in any way, shape, or form ever, but you know, from a safe harbor is where we can enact the most change. So taking care of yourself, you know, whether that's, you know, whatever, just the normal cliche things, right? Eating right, getting exercise, drinking water, just these things that know that better yourself, those invariably are the people who end up doing the best, are the ones that have a drive to be better than the day they were before. Always better. And you can do that at work. You can do that outside of work. But I promise that if you are genuinely trying to improve yourself, then every other aspect of your life will improve with it. It's just a law of existence. You will see improvement. So, you know, make the change today. These are all words and they're all fun, but they're fluff and it's white noise unless we actually do something. So pick something and do it.
Amen, dude. Amen. All right, we'll leave this at this, guys, but we're gonna keep doing this definitely and once a week, once every 2 weeks, whatever you guys want to do. And you know, Seth, I talked to you about it, but I didn't talk to anybody else about it. I want to create a Renewable Anderson clubhouse. It's true, but it's kind of a joke. I'm not going to joke anymore about it because I was going to just say something that definitely I don't want on YouTube. That would have been funny, but we're not going to do that right now. So we'll end on that note. You guys have a great night. Thank you, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Seth and Harry, I'll see you guys on Thursday. Mo and Corey, I'll see you guys hopefully not for another 6 months. I'm just kidding. I'll see you guys next week.
Sounds good. Thank you.